The photograph appeared on social media at exactly 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and within minutes, it had been shared thousands of times. It showed a woman in a simple cream coat, her hand resting gently on a hospital window, looking out at the world she had been forced to step away from for months. But this wasn't just any woman. This was Catherine, Princess of Wales, and this single image would mark the beginning of one of the most emotionally charged comebacks in royal history. For 9 months, the British public had been left wondering, worrying, and speculating about their beloved princess who had seemingly vanished from public view. Conspiracy theories swirled like autumn leaves in a storm. Social media buzzed with questions that palace officials refused to answer. Where was Kate? What had really happened? And, most importantly, would she ever return? The truth, when it finally emerged, was more heartbreaking and inspiring than anyone could have imagined. Behind the palace walls, Catherine had been fighting the battle of her life, not just for her health, but for her family, her role, and her very identity as the future Queen of England. This is the story of a princess who became human in the eyes of her people, a mother who showed the world that even royalty faces the same fears and struggles as everyone else, and a woman whose courage in the face of unimaginable challenges would forever change how the public viewed the monarchy itself. The last time the public had seen Catherine in her full royal capacity, she had been radiant. Standing beside Prince William at the annual Commonwealth Day service in March, she wore a navy blue coat dress that perfectly complemented her sapphire and diamond earrings, the same earrings that had once belonged to Princess Diana. Her smile was warm, her handshakes confident, and her interactions with the crowd seemed effortless. Nobody watching that day could have imagined that this would be the last time they would see their princess in action for nearly a year. The announcement came on a cold January morning, delivered through the sterile language that palaces use when they want to say something without really saying anything at all. Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales was admitted to the London clinic yesterday for planned abdominal surgery, read the statement from Kensington Palace. The surgery was successful, and it is expected that she will remain in hospital for 10 to 14 days before returning home to continue her recovery. The words seemed straightforward enough, but those who understood royal communications knew that something much bigger was happening. The palace rarely announced medical procedures unless they were serious. Even more telling was the next line. The Princess of Wales appreciates the interest this statement will generate. She hopes that the public will understand her desire to maintain as much normality as possible for her children. Within hours, the speculation began. Social media platforms buzzed with theories and questions. What kind of abdominal surgery requires 2 weeks in hospital? Why hadn't there been any prior indication that Catherine was unwell? And, perhaps most puzzling of all, why was the palace being so vague about everything? Royal correspondent Rebecca Smith had covered the British monarchy for over 15 years, and she had never seen anything quite like the wall of silence that descended around Catherine's condition. Usually, when members of the royal family have medical procedures, we get some indication of what's happening, she explained to viewers on the evening news. When King Charles had his prostate surgery, we knew about it. When the late Queen had eye surgery, it was announced. But this level of secrecy is unprecedented. The public's concern was immediate and genuine. Catherine had become one of the most beloved members of the royal family, not through grand gestures or dramatic statements, but through her steady presence and relatability. She was the princess who wore high street clothing, who was photographed doing her own grocery shopping, who seemed to genuinely enjoy talking to children during royal visits. She represented a modern monarchy that connected with ordinary people's lives. Sarah Thompson, a mother of 3 from Manchester, spoke for millions when she told reporters, "She's like one of us, you know? She's got young children. She's trying to balance everything. When you see someone like that disappear suddenly, you can't help but worry. My kids ask about Princess Kate all the time." The planned surgery took place on January 17th at the London Clinic, one of London's most prestigious private hospitals. The facility, known for treating high-profile patients with absolute discretion, became the center of media attention overnight. Photographers camped outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of Prince William arriving or leaving. Security was tight, with additional barriers erected and access strictly controlled. Prince William's schedule during this period told its own story. The future king, known for his dedication to royal duties, suddenly cleared his diary. Engagements were postponed, meetings were rescheduled, and, for the first time since his marriage, William seemed to prioritize his family over his royal obligations completely. Those close to the royal couple noted that William appeared tense and distracted during his few public appearances. William is not someone who shows emotion easily, observed royal biographer Angela Morton. But during those weeks, you could see the strain in his face. This wasn't just a routine medical procedure for his wife. This was something that had shaken him to his core. The children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, were kept on their normal schedules as much as possible. They attended school at Lambrook, their prestigious preparatory school in Berkshire, but teachers noted that George, the eldest at 10 years old, seemed subdued and distracted. Charlotte, 8, asked her teachers several times when her mummy would be coming home. Little Louis, just 5, seemed the least affected, but even he was heard asking his protection officer why there were so many cars outside their home. The hospital stay stretched longer than initially announced. Days turned into weeks, and still, no updates came from the palace. The silence was deafening, and it only fueled more speculation. Royal watchers analyzed every movement around the hospital, every change in William's schedule, every statement from palace officials looking for clues. Dr. Sarah Williams, a consultant surgeon not involved in Catherine's care, tried to explain to concerned members of the public what might require such an extended hospital stay. Major abdominal surgery can involve many different procedures, she explained in an interview with the BBC. Recovery times vary enormously depending on what was done. The fact that she's staying in hospital longer than initially planned could mean complications, or it could simply mean they're being extra cautious. The media coverage during this period walked a careful line. British newspapers, bound by editors' code of practice regarding privacy and medical information, reported the basic facts but refrained from intrusive speculation. However, social media had no such restraints. Conspiracy theories flourished online, ranging from the absurd to the genuinely concerning. Some suggested that Catherine was suffering from a mental health crisis. Others proposed that the royal marriage was in trouble. The most persistent rumors suggested that her condition was far more serious than the palace was admitting. International media was less restrained. American entertainment websites ran wild with speculation, and several European publications published unfounded claims about Catherine's condition. The palace's traditional approach of dignified silence, which had worked well in pre-internet days, seemed inadequate for the age of social media and instant global communication. Friends of the princess later revealed that the decision to keep details private had been Catherine's own. She had always been intensely private about personal matters, and she was determined to maintain some control over her family's privacy, even in these extraordinary circumstances. Kate has always been very clear about boundaries, one friend explained anonymously. She gives a lot to the public in her royal role, but she felt she had the right to keep this private. The extended hospital stay also meant missing crucial royal events. The princess had been scheduled to attend several high-profile engagements during February and March, including a visit to a children's hospital that she had been particularly looking forward to. Her absence from these events was felt keenly by the organizations involved and by the public who had hoped to see her. As January turned into February, and Catherine remained out of sight, the public's concern deepened. The woman who had been a constant presence in British public life for over a decade had simply vanished, leaving behind only questions and a growing sense that something significant was happening behind palace walls. The silence was broken only by brief, clinical updates from the palace. The Princess of Wales continues to recover well. But these statements raised more questions than they answered. If she was recovering well, why wasn't she being seen in public? Why weren't there any photographs of her recovery? Why was Prince William still clearing his schedule? It would be months before the public learned the truth about what Catherine was facing during those hidden weeks. But even then, in the depths of uncertainty, there were signs of the strength and grace that would carry her through the most challenging period of her life. The silence that surrounded her wasn't empty. It was full of a courage that the world had yet to understand. Hospital staff who treated Catherine during this period later spoke anonymously about her dignity and determination. Even when she was at her most vulnerable, one nurse revealed, she was thinking about others. She asked about other patients, she thanked everyone who helped her, and she never complained, even when things were difficult. As February drew to a close, the public still had no idea that their beloved princess was facing a battle that would test every aspect of her strength, both physical and emotional. The real story of Catherine's challenge was yet to be revealed, but her silence during this period spoke volumes about the character that would carry her through the storm ahead. The video message that changed everything was filmed on a bench in the gardens of Windsor Castle on a bright March afternoon. Catherine sat alone, wearing a simple striped sweater and jeans, with daffodils blooming behind her, a symbol of spring and new beginnings that would later seem deeply symbolic. Her hair was styled simply, her makeup minimal, and when she began to speak, her voice carried a weight that made millions of viewers hold their breath. I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you, personally, for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding whilst I have been recovering from surgery, she began, her hands folded carefully in her lap. It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who have taken such good care of me, for which I am so grateful. The words that followed would echo around the world within hours. In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and, at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I am now in the early stages of that treatment. Cancer. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. For a woman who had always seemed invincible in her royal duties, who had juggled motherhood and public service with apparent ease, the revelation was shocking. But perhaps even more shocking was the grace with which she delivered the news. The recording had taken several attempts to get right. Palace sources later revealed that Catherine had insisted on doing it herself, without a script, speaking from her heart. She wanted people to hear it from her, in her own words, a source close to the family explained. She felt that after all the speculation and worry, people deserved the truth, and they deserved to hear it directly from her. Prince William had been present during the filming, standing just out of camera range, providing silent support. Their 3 children were at school, unaware that their mother was about to share their family's most private struggle with the world. The decision to go public had been agonizing, weighing their children's privacy against the public's right to know why their princess had disappeared. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour of the video being released, social media was flooded with messages of support. The hashtag #PrincessKateStrong began trending worldwide. Celebrities, politicians, and ordinary people from every corner of the globe shared their own stories of cancer battles, their words of encouragement, and their prayers for Catherine's recovery. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was among the first to respond publicly. The Princess of Wales has shown tremendous bravery with her statement today. When she is ready, I know the whole country will be behind her as she continues her recovery. But perhaps more meaningful were the messages from ordinary people who felt a deep connection to Catherine's struggle. Cancer support groups reported an immediate increase in calls from people seeking information and support. When someone as high-profile as the Princess of Wales shares their cancer diagnosis, it reminds everyone that this disease doesn't discriminate, said Dr. Emma Richardson, Chief Executive of Cancer Research UK. The type of cancer Catherine was facing was not disclosed, respecting her medical privacy, but oncologists who spoke to the media emphasized that preventative chemotherapy after surgery was a standard and often highly effective treatment. The fact that she's receiving preventative treatment suggests that her medical team is confident they've caught this early, explained Dr. Michael Thompson, a consultant oncologist at University College London Hospital. Behind the scenes, the period leading up to the announcement had been one of the most challenging in Catherine's life. Friends later revealed that the weeks following her diagnosis had been filled with tears, sleepless nights, and difficult conversations about the future. Kate is incredibly strong, but she's also human, one close friend shared anonymously. When she first got the diagnosis, she was devastated. Her first thought was for her children and how this would affect them. The decision about how much to tell Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis had been particularly difficult. Child psychologists were consulted, and ultimately, Catherine and William decided to be honest but age-appropriate with their explanations. George, as the eldest, was told the most detail, while Louis received a simpler explanation about Mummy needing special medicine to feel better. The children have been amazing, Catherine said in her video message, her voice softening when she spoke about them. William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family. As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But, most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that is appropriate for them, and to reassure them that I am going to be okay. The timing of the announcement, coming just before the Easter school holidays, was carefully planned. It would give the family time together without the pressure of school routines, and would allow Catherine to begin her treatment away from public scrutiny. The palace announced that she would step back from all public duties until cleared by her medical team to return. For a woman whose life had been carefully scheduled with royal engagements often planned months in advance, the sudden clearing of her diary was both a relief and a challenge. Catherine had always found purpose and energy in her royal work, particularly her advocacy for early childhood development and mental health awareness. Now, that work would have to wait while she focused on her own health. The support from her family was immediate and total. King Charles, who was simultaneously dealing with his own cancer diagnosis, spoke publicly about his pride in Catherine's courage. His Majesty is so proud of Catherine for her courage in speaking as she did, a palace spokesperson said. Following their time in hospital together, His Majesty has remained in the closest contact with his beloved daughter-in-law throughout the past weeks. Queen Camilla, who had developed a close relationship with Catherine over the years, became a source of particular support. Having watched Charles go through his own treatment, she understood the challenges Catherine was facing and provided both practical advice and emotional support. Camilla has been wonderful, a family friend revealed. She's been through this with Charles, and she's been able to share what she's learned about supporting someone through cancer treatment. The Spencer family, Catherine's own relatives, rallied around her as well. Her parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, who had always been hands-on grandparents, increased their presence in the Wales family home, helping with the children and providing the kind of unconditional love and support that only family can offer. The medical team treating Catherine was led by some of the UK's most respected oncologists. The London clinic, where her surgery had taken place, coordinated with specialists at the Royal Marsden Hospital, one of the world's leading cancer centers. The treatment plan was comprehensive and carefully tailored to her specific situation. Chemotherapy sessions were scheduled to minimize disruption to family life as much as possible. The drugs used in preventative chemotherapy are typically less intense than those used to treat advanced cancer, but they still come with significant side effects. Catherine would experience fatigue, nausea, and the possibility of hair loss, challenges that would test her physical and emotional strength. People often underestimate how difficult preventative chemotherapy can be, explained Dr. Sarah Ahmed, a specialist in cancer treatment. Even though it's not treating active disease, the medications are powerful, and the side effects can be substantial. It requires tremendous mental and physical strength to get through. The practical arrangements for Catherine's treatment were complex. Security considerations meant that her hospital visits had to be carefully planned and coordinated. Special arrangements were made to ensure her privacy while maintaining the security protocols required for a senior member of the royal family. Staff at the treatment facilities signed additional confidentiality agreements, and access was strictly limited to essential personnel. Meanwhile, Prince William adjusted his royal schedule to be present for as many treatment sessions as possible. The future king, known for his stoic public demeanor, was described by those close to him as being fierce in his protection of Catherine during this period. He took on additional responsibilities for school runs, homework help, and bedtime routines, determined to maintain as much normality as possible for his children. The impact on the three Wales children during this period cannot be understated. Despite their parents' efforts to shield them, the change in their mother's energy and appearance was noticeable. Catherine, who had always been actively involved in their daily lives, now had days when the treatment left her too tired for normal activities. Princess Charlotte, in particular, seemed to sense her mother's struggle and became more protective and helpful around the house. Prince George, old enough to understand more of what was happening, occasionally seemed withdrawn at school. Prince Louis, the youngest, adapted with the resilience typical of small children, though he was heard asking several times when Mummy would be all better. The video announcement marked the end of months of speculation and the beginning of a new chapter. Catherine had chosen courage over privacy, deciding that her honesty might help others facing similar battles. At this time, I am also thinking of all those whose lives have been affected by cancer, she said in her message. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone. The response from cancer patients and survivors was particularly moving. Support groups reported receiving messages from people who said Catherine's openness had encouraged them to seek treatment or had given them hope during their own difficult journeys. When someone like the Princess of Wales shares their story, It removes some of the stigma and fear around cancer, said Jennifer Mills, a cancer survivor and advocate. As the video message concluded with Catherine's words, "I am well and getting stronger every day by focusing on the things that will heal me, my mind, body, and spirits," millions of people around the world found themselves inspired by her strength and moved to support her journey in whatever way they could. The truth was finally out, but the real test of Catherine's courage was just beginning. The months ahead would require every ounce of her strength, but she would not face them alone. An entire nation, and indeed the world, was now standing behind her, ready to support their princess through the fight of her life. The treatment center became Catherine's second home over the following months, though few people would have recognized the usually immaculate princess during her visits. Wrapped in comfortable scarves to hide the changes to her hair, wearing minimal makeup to combat the pallor that chemotherapy brought to her complexion, she would arrive through private entrances, walking with a determination that impressed her medical team daily. Dr. Patricia Williams, who led Catherine's treatment team, later described those months as witnessing extraordinary grace under pressure. The princess, she noted, never missed an appointment, never complained about side effects, and always asked more questions about her treatment plan than about her prognosis. She wanted to understand everything that was happening to her body, Dr. Williams explained. She approached her treatment like she approached her royal duties, with thoroughness, preparation, and absolute commitment. The chemotherapy regime was intensive but carefully calibrated. Catherine received treatment every 3 weeks, with each session lasting several hours. The medications were designed to eliminate any remaining cancer cells that might have been missed during surgery, significantly reducing the risk of recurrence. However, the physical toll was substantial. During the first cycle, Catherine experienced the nausea that affects most chemotherapy patients. Despite anti-sickness medications, she found it difficult to keep food down for several days after each treatment. William later revealed that he learned to cook simple, bland meals that she could tolerate, a skill that surprised both of them, given his previously limited culinary abilities. "I remember one evening in April," William shared months later during a rare candid interview. "Kate hadn't been able to eat much for days, and I found her in the kitchen at midnight, crying because she was so hungry, but nothing seemed appetizing. I made her plain toast with just a tiny bit of butter, and she managed to eat half a slice. We both cried a little that night, but also laughed about how something so simple had become such a victory." The fatigue was perhaps even more challenging than the nausea. Catherine, accustomed to maintaining a packed schedule of royal engagements, found herself needing to rest for hours after minimal activity. Simple tasks like helping the children with homework or walking in the garden left her exhausted. Friends who visited during this period noted how difficult this adjustment was for someone who had always been physically active and energetic. "Kate has always been someone who goes for long walks, plays tennis, does yoga," observed a close family friend. To suddenly find that walking upstairs left her breathless was incredibly frustrating for her. She had to completely redefine what taking care of herself meant. The psychological impact of the treatment was equally significant. Catherine had always prided herself on her appearance and her ability to present herself perfectly in public. The changes to her physical appearance, the loss of her lustrous hair, the changes to her skin tone, the weight loss, were challenging for someone whose image was so public. Hair loss began during her 3rd week of treatment. Catherine later described this as one of the most emotionally difficult moments of her journey. "I knew it would happen," she said. "The doctors had prepared me. William had prepared me. I thought I was ready. But when I woke up and saw hair on my pillow, it felt like losing a part of myself." Prince William's response became one of the most touching aspects of their story. Without saying a word, he shaved his own head that same day in solidarity with his wife. When the children saw their parents at breakfast the next morning, both with dramatically short hair, the moment became one of unexpected laughter rather than sadness. "Daddy, you look funny," Prince Louis exclaimed, breaking the tension that had filled their home for days. From that moment forward, the family made it a point to find humor wherever they could during the difficult journey ahead. The children's adjustment to their mother's treatment was carefully monitored by child psychologists recommended by the palace. Each child processed the situation differently, and Catherine and William worked hard to maintain open communication while protecting their innocence as much as possible. Prince George, at 10 years old, was the most aware of the seriousness of the situation. He began taking on more responsibility around the house without being asked and was often found sitting quietly beside his mother during her rest periods. George became incredibly protective of me, Catherine later recalled. He would bring me water without being asked, and he started doing his homework in whatever room I was resting in, just to be close. Princess Charlotte channeled her concern into creativity. She filled sketchbooks with drawings of the family, often depicting them all with bright smiles and surrounded by flowers. Her artwork during this period became treasured keepsakes that Catherine still displays in their private quarters. Charlotte also took on a maternal role with her younger brother, reading him stories and helping with his bedtime routine when Catherine was too tired. Prince Louis, at 5 years old, adapted with the remarkable resilience of young children. He seemed to intuitively understand that his mother needed extra quiet time and gentleness, though he would occasionally forget, and bound into her room with his usual enthusiasm, bringing momentary bursts of joy to difficult days. The support network that surrounded the family during this period extended far beyond the immediate royal family. Catherine's parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, essentially moved into Adelaide Cottage to help with daily routines. Carol, in particular, became indispensable, taking over many of the household management tasks that Catherine had always handled herself. My mother was incredible during this time, Catherine later reflected. She didn't just help with practical things, though she did everything from school runs to laundry. She provided the kind of emotional support that only a mother can give. She never made me feel like I was letting anyone down, even when I couldn't do the simplest things. The Princess of Wales's sister, Pippa, and brother, James, also played crucial roles during her treatment. Pippa would arrive for weekend visits with carefully planned activities that required minimal energy, but provided maximum distraction for the children. James, who lived nearby, became a regular presence, often arriving unannounced with coffee and conversation for Catherine during her lowest moments. The royal family's response was equally supportive, though necessarily more formal given their public roles. King Charles, managing his own cancer treatment simultaneously, maintained regular contact with Catherine and William. The shared experience of cancer treatment created a deeper bond between the monarch and his daughter-in-law, who could understand each other's struggles in ways that others couldn't. Having Charles go through treatment at the same time was both comforting and concerning, William later explained. It meant Kate had someone who truly understood what she was experiencing, but it also meant our family was dealing with 2 cancer diagnoses simultaneously. There were moments when it felt overwhelming. Queen Camilla proved to be an unexpected source of strength for Catherine during this period. Having supported Charles through his treatment, she understood the practical and emotional challenges that Catherine was facing. She would call regularly with gentle encouragement and practical advice about managing side effects and maintaining family routines during treatment. The medical team treating Catherine worked closely with palace officials to ensure that her care remained completely confidential while meeting the highest standards. The Royal Marsden Hospital, where some of her treatment took place, implemented special security and privacy protocols. Staff members were required to sign additional confidentiality agreements, and Catherine's treatment schedule was shared only with essential personnel. Dr. Williams noted that Catherine was an exemplary patient who followed her treatment protocol exactly. She took all her medications as prescribed, attended every appointment, and followed all the dietary and lifestyle recommendations we made. She understood that compliance with the treatment plan was crucial for the best possible outcome. The side effects of chemotherapy affected more than just Catherine's physical health. The medications impacted her concentration and memory, making it difficult to read or focus on complex tasks for extended periods. This was particularly frustrating for someone who had always been intellectually engaged and well-informed about current events. There were days when I couldn't follow the plot of a simple television show, Catherine later admitted. It was frightening to feel like my mind wasn't working the way it always had. William would read to me sometimes, which became one of my favorite parts of the day. Sleep became both more necessary and more elusive during treatment. The medications often left Catherine feeling simultaneously exhausted and restless. She developed new routines to cope with insomnia, including gentle yoga stretches and meditation practices that she had learned years earlier but never fully embraced until they became essential for her well-being. The absence from public duties during this period was felt not just by Catherine, but by the numerous charities and organizations she supported. Many had to postpone events or find alternative royal patrons for important occasions. However, the understanding and support from these organizations was universal. Chief executives and charity workers sent messages of support and assured Catherine that their work would continue in her absence. "The Princess of Wales has given so much to our organization over the years," said Margaret Davis, CEO of one of Catherine's patronages. "When we heard about her diagnosis, our only concern was for her recovery. Our events can wait, her health cannot." Despite the challenges, there were moments of unexpected joy during Catherine's treatment period. The family began new traditions, like having breakfast in bed together on Sundays and taking short walks in their private gardens when Catherine felt well enough. These simple pleasures became precious memories that strengthened their bond as a family. The treatment schedule also allowed for some unexpected benefits. For the first time since becoming a senior royal, Catherine had extended periods at home with her children. While the circumstances were far from ideal, she was able to be present for homework sessions, bedtime stories, and casual conversations in ways that her busy royal schedule had rarely permitted. In some strange way, Catherine reflected later, "This terrible experience gave me something I had never had before, uninterrupted time with my children during a crucial period of their development. I wouldn't wish cancer on anyone, but those quiet moments with George, Charlotte, and Louis became some of my most treasured memories." As the months progressed, and Catherine moved through her treatment cycles, her strength began to return gradually. The medical team monitored her progress carefully, adjusting medications and providing additional support as needed. By late summer, there were encouraging signs that the treatment was working exactly as hoped, and cautious discussions began about the possibility of a gradual return to public life. But Catherine herself insisted that her return would be on her own terms, when she felt truly ready, and only when her medical team gave their complete approval. The woman who emerged from those months of treatment would be different from the one who had entered it, stronger in some ways, more vulnerable in others, but with a deeper understanding of life's fragility and preciousness that would inform everything she did going forward. The first sign that Catherine might be ready to return to public life came on a quiet September morning when she walked into the kitchen of Adelaide Cottage and announced to William that she wanted to bake cookies with the children. For months, the smell of cooking had made her nauseous, and she had avoided the kitchen during meal preparations. But that morning, something had shifted. "I woke up thinking about my grandmother's recipe for lemon cookies," she told William later. "For the first time in months, the idea of being in the kitchen, of making something with my hands, felt appealing rather than overwhelming. The simple act of measuring flour and cracking eggs became a celebration of returning strength and normalcy." Dr. Williams had been monitoring Catherine's progress carefully throughout her treatment, and the signs were overwhelmingly positive. Blood tests showed that her body was responding well to the chemotherapy, and, most importantly, there were no signs of cancer recurrence. "Her recovery has been exemplary," Dr. Williams reported to the Palace medical team. "Both physically and emotionally, she's shown remarkable resilience." However, the medical team was careful to emphasize that returning to royal duties would need to be a gradual process. Catherine's immune system was still recovering from the chemotherapy, making her more susceptible to infections. The physical and emotional demands of royal engagements, with their long hours and intense public interaction, would need to be carefully managed. "We developed what we called a step-up plan," explained Dr. Williams, starting with very brief, private meetings and gradually building up to full public engagements over a period of several months. The key was listening to her body and not pushing too hard too fast. Catherine herself was eager but realistic about her return. "I felt like I had been in a cocoon for months," she later described. "I was ready to emerge, but I knew I needed to do it carefully. I wasn't the same person who had gone into treatment, and I couldn't expect to return to exactly the same life I had before." The first step was a private meeting in early October with some of her key staff members at Kensington Palace. Her private secretary, equerry, and communications team gathered in her sitting room for what was initially planned to be a 30-minute update. Instead, the meeting stretched to nearly 2 hours as Catherine enthusiastically discussed her plans for returning to work. "Seeing her excitement about her projects again was wonderful," recalled one staff member who was present. "She had so many ideas, so much energy for the causes she cared about. But we could also see that she tired more easily than before. We knew we needed to be protective of her energy while supporting her enthusiasm." The Palace communications team faced a unique challenge in managing Catherine's return. Public interest in her story was enormous, but she was determined to maintain privacy around the medical details of her journey. The strategy they developed focused on her recovery and her gradual return to the causes she was passionate about, rather than on her illness. The princess was very clear that she didn't want her cancer journey to define her return to public life, explained a senior palace communications official. She wanted the focus to be on her work, on the organizations she supports, and on moving forward rather than looking back. Preparations for Catherine's first public appearance required extensive planning. Security assessments had to be updated to account for her potentially reduced stamina and immune system considerations. Medical support would need to be discreetly available at all events. Most challenging of all, expectations had to be carefully managed, both her own and the public's. The choice of her first engagement was crucial. It needed to be meaningful enough to mark her return properly, but not so demanding that it would overwhelm her. After much consideration, Catherine chose to visit a children's hospital where she was patron, a cause close to her heart, and an environment where her recent experience with healthcare would feel particularly relevant. I wanted my first public engagement to be somewhere that felt authentic to who I had become during my treatment, Catherine explained. Hospitals had been such a significant part of my life for months. Going back to one, but this time as a supporter rather than a patient, felt like the right way to begin again. The preparation for this first visit was meticulous. Catherine spent hours with her team planning every detail, from the route through the hospital to the timing of each interaction. She practiced standing for extended periods, worked on building up her stamina, and even rehearsed conversations to ensure she would be comfortable in her first public interactions after such a long absence. Prince William's role in supporting her return was crucial but delicate. He wanted to be protective without being overprotective, supportive without being controlling. William knew that my independence and confidence in my royal role were important to my overall recovery, Catherine later reflected. But he also knew the toll that royal duties could take even when you're completely healthy. The children's excitement about their mother's returning energy was evident to everyone around them. Prince George began asking when he might be able to attend an engagement with her again. Princess Charlotte started drawing pictures of her mother in royal settings, wearing the tiaras and gowns that had been absent from their home for months. Prince Louis simply seemed delighted to have his energetic, engaged mother back. As October progressed, Catherine began taking on more activities to build her strength and confidence. She started attending some of her children's school events, always sitting at the back and leaving early, but gradually becoming more present in their daily lives. She resumed some of her fitness routines, though at a much gentler pace than before her diagnosis. The hair regrowth process had been particularly important to Catherine's confidence about returning to public life. While wigs and scarves had served her well during treatment, she was determined to appear in public with her own hair, even if it was shorter and different in texture than before. Hairstylists worked with her to develop new looks that would work with her changed hair while maintaining the polished appearance expected of a senior royal. My hair had always been such a part of how I presented myself publicly, Catherine admitted. Learning to feel confident with my new hair was actually a bigger challenge than I expected, but it also felt like a visible symbol of what I had overcome. The palace's advance team began reaching out to organizations and charities to discuss Catherine's gradual return to her patronages. The response was universally supportive, with many organizations expressing that they were willing to adjust their plans to accommodate her needs and timeline. Every charity was just thrilled to have her back in any capacity, reported one palisade. Many said that her experience would bring new depth to her understanding of healthcare and resilience, which could only benefit the causes she supported. Media preparation was another crucial element. Catherine's first interviews upon her return would need to strike the right balance between acknowledging her journey and focusing on her work going forward. The palace media team worked closely with friendly journalists to ensure that coverage would be respectful while satisfying the intense public interest in her story. International interest in Catherine's return was particularly intense. Her cancer journey had been followed closely around the world, and international media were eager to cover her first public appearances. The palace had to coordinate with multiple international news organizations while ensuring that British media received appropriate priority. The selection of her wardrobe for her return engagements required special consideration. Catherine had always been known for her impeccable style, but her body had changed during treatment, and her confidence about her appearance was still rebuilding. Her styling team worked carefully to choose outfits that would help her feel confident while maintaining her signature elegant aesthetic. We wanted her to look like herself, but we also had to acknowledge that her body and her comfort level had changed, explained one of her styling advisors. The goal was to help her feel powerful and comfortable, which would translate into confidence during her engagements. The emotional preparation was perhaps most important of all. Catherine worked with counselors who specialized in helping public figures return to high-pressure roles after health crises. These sessions focused not just on managing her energy and expectations, but on processing the complex emotions around stepping back into such a public role after such a private struggle. Returning to public life after cancer treatment is challenging for anyone, explained Dr. Rachel Thompson, a psychologist who works with public figures. For someone in Catherine's position, with such intense public scrutiny, the pressure is even greater. The key is building confidence gradually and having strong support systems in place. Family discussions about Catherine's return were ongoing and complex. While everyone was excited to see her feeling stronger and more engaged, there was also anxiety about the potential stress of royal duties on her continuing recovery. The family developed signals and protocols for supporting her during engagements if she became overwhelmed or tired. As November approached, anticipation for Catherine's return reached fever pitch. Tabloid newspapers published countdown calendars, and royal watchers analyzed every palace announcement for clues about timing. The pressure was intense, but Catherine was determined to return on her own terms when she felt truly ready. "I refuse to be pushed into returning before I'm completely prepared," she told her staff. "This return isn't just about me. It's about showing that it's possible to come back stronger after facing something like this. I want to get it right." The final preparations included dress rehearsals at Kensington Palace, where Catherine practiced the specific elements of royal engagements that might feel rusty after her long absence. She worked on her handshake technique, practiced small talk with staff members playing the role of dignitaries, and rehearsed the precise timing and movements required for formal events. Security preparations were finalized, with additional medical support discreetly arranged for her first several engagements. Her protection team was briefed on signs that she might need to cut an engagement short, and backup plans were developed for every possible scenario. As the date for her first public appearance was finally announced, the anticipation was palpable not just among the public, but within the royal household itself. Staff members who had watched her struggle through the darkest months of treatment were eager to see her step back into the role she loved, while remaining protective of the remarkable woman who had shown such grace under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. The stage was set for a return that would be about much more than resuming royal duties. Catherine was preparing to show the world that it was possible to face life's greatest challenges with dignity, emerge stronger, and continue serving others even after experiencing vulnerability and fear. Her return would not just mark the end of her treatment journey, but the beginning of a new chapter in her royal service, informed by experiences that had deepened her empathy and strengthened her resolve. The morning of November 15th dawned crisp and clear in London, with pale winter sunlight streaming through the windows of Adelaide Cottage. Catherine woke early, not from anxiety, but from anticipation. After months of private struggle and careful preparation, today marked her return to the public role that had defined her adult life. But this would not be the same princess who had disappeared into privacy nearly a year earlier. Her first engagement was at Great Ormond Street Hospital, a place that held special meaning after her own healthcare journey. As she prepared for the day, Catherine chose her outfit carefully. A deep blue dress that complemented her shorter, newly grown hair, paired with a coat that had become one of her favorites during her recovery. The outfit was elegant, but comfortable, confident, but not ostentatious. Prince William watched her final preparations with a mixture of pride and protective concern. "You don't have to do this today if you don't feel ready," he told her, a conversation they had repeated several times over the past week. Catherine's response was firm. "I've never felt more ready for anything in my life." The drive to the hospital was different from any royal journey Catherine had made before. Her protection officers had been briefed extensively about her needs, and a medical professional traveled discreetly with the convoy. But, most significantly, Catherine herself felt different. The months of treatment had stripped away many of her previous anxieties about public appearances, replacing them with a deeper sense of purpose. "During my treatment, I spent a lot of time thinking about what really mattered," she later reflected. "Worrying about whether I said the perfect thing or whether my appearance was flawless seemed less important after facing something life-threatening. I felt more focused on connecting with people and making a real difference." The first indication that this engagement would be extraordinary came as Catherine's car approached the hospital. Crowds had gathered despite the cold weather, many holding signs of support and welcome. "Welcome back, Princess Catherine," read one banner held by a group of nurses. "Thank you for your courage," read another. The warmth of the public reception was immediately apparent. As Catherine stepped out of her car, the crowd erupted in applause. For a moment, she paused, visibly moved by the welcome. This was not the polite applause typically heard at royal engagements, but something deeper, a genuine expression of relief and joy from people who had worried about her and celebrated her recovery. Hospital staff who greeted Catherine noted immediately that something had changed in her demeanor. "She seemed more present, more engaged than I had ever seen her before," recalled Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the hospital's chief executive. There was a depth to her interactions that hadn't been there previously. She wasn't just performing her royal role, she was connecting on a human level. Catherine's first stop was the oncology ward, a choice that surprised some observers, but made perfect sense to those who understood her journey. She spent time with young cancer patients and their families, and the conversations that took place were unlike any she had had during previous royal visits. 8-year-old Emma Thompson, who was receiving treatment for leukemia, later told her mother about meeting the princess. "She told me that being scared is normal, and that medicine can make you feel yucky, but that getting better is worth it," Emma recounted. She said she knew because she had been sick too, and now she feels much better. The impact of Catherine's presence on the families was profound. Parents who had been struggling to maintain optimism during their children's treatment found hope in seeing the princess who had faced her own cancer journey and emerged stronger. "Seeing her there, healthy and radiant, was incredibly inspiring," said Mark Patterson, whose 6-year-old son was undergoing chemotherapy. Catherine spent nearly an hour longer in the oncology ward than originally scheduled, seemingly reluctant to leave. She listened to stories, offered encouragement, and shared moments of understanding that could only come from someone who had experienced similar challenges. Staff members were moved to tears watching her interactions with young patients. The next portion of her visit took Catherine to the hospital's research laboratories, where she met with scientists working on pediatric cancer research. Here, her questions demonstrated a new level of understanding about medical research and treatment protocols, knowledge gained through her own recent experience as a patient. Her questions were incredibly informed and insightful, noted Dr. James Wilson, the hospital's research director. You could tell she had gained a deep understanding of cancer treatment from a patient's perspective, which gave her a unique ability to bridge the gap between clinical research and patient experience. The media coverage of Catherine's return was extensive, but notably respectful. Photographers captured her genuine smiles and natural interactions, and journalists focused on her evident passion for the cause rather than speculation about her health. The images that emerged from the day showed a woman who appeared not just recovered, but transformed, more confident, more purposeful, and more deeply connected to her work. Royal correspondent Victoria Palmer observed the engagement and noted the change in Catherine's public persona. There was an authenticity to her interactions that seemed deeper than before, Palmer reported. She wasn't just fulfilling royal obligations. She was clearly drawing on personal experience to connect with people in ways that felt genuinely meaningful. The public response to Catherine's return was overwhelming. Social media was flooded with messages of welcome and admiration. The hashtag Welcome Back Catherine trended worldwide within hours of her appearance. Cancer patients and survivors from around the globe shared their own stories, inspired by her courage in returning to public life. One particularly moving response came from Maria Santos, a cancer survivor from Spain. "Seeing Princess Catherine return to help others after her own battle gives me hope for my own recovery. She shows that cancer doesn't have to be the end of anything. It can be the beginning of something even more meaningful." The success of Catherine's first engagement exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own. Despite her months of preparation, she had been nervous about how she would handle the physical and emotional demands of a full royal engagement. Instead, she found that the experience energized rather than drained her. "I felt more fulfilled after that one engagement than I had after dozens before my diagnosis," she later told William. "Having a deeper understanding of what patients and families go through changed everything about how I approached the visit. I wasn't just observing, I was truly connecting." The planning for Catherine's subsequent engagements began immediately. The success of her return had generated numerous invitations and requests, but her team was careful to maintain a gradual pace. The goal was to build on the momentum of her successful return while protecting her continued recovery. Her second engagement, 2 weeks later, focused on early childhood development, another of her key areas of interest. Here too, her approach had been deepened by her recent experiences. Having spent months focused intensely on her own children's emotional needs during her treatment, she brought new insights to her advocacy for early childhood support. The princess's understanding of child psychology and family dynamics seemed more nuanced than before, observed Dr. Linda Harrison, a child development specialist who worked with Catherine on several projects. Her own experience of protecting her children during a family crisis had given her new perspectives on the challenges families face. The international response to Catherine's return was equally positive. Foreign delegations and international charities reached out to invite her for visits and collaborations. Her story of recovery and return had resonated globally, making her an even more influential advocate for her causes. By December, Catherine had successfully completed several engagements and was feeling confident about taking on more challenging events. The Christmas season brought opportunities for some of the year's most high-profile royal occasions, and Catherine was eager to participate fully in the festivities that she had missed the previous year. The Christmas Carol service at Westminster Abbey, an event that Catherine had organized annually, became particularly meaningful. The theme she chose was hope and renewal, reflecting not just her personal journey but her vision for how her experience could benefit others. This year's service feels different, Catherine told the choir during rehearsals. It's not just about celebrating the season. It's about celebrating the possibility of renewal and the power of hope in the darkest times. The service itself was deeply moving, with readings and music chosen to reflect themes of recovery and resilience. Catherine's reading from the Gospel of Luke, about bringing hope to those in darkness, resonated powerfully with the congregation and the millions who watched the televised service. Celebrities and public figures who attended the service noted the change in Catherine's presence. There was something almost luminous about her, said actress Helen Mirren, who had attended several previous royal events. She seemed to radiate a kind of inner strength and peace that was new. It was as if her experiences had refined her into an even more remarkable person. The year ended with Catherine having successfully returned to full royal duties while maintaining her health and continuing her recovery. Medical checkups continued to show positive results, and her energy levels had stabilized at a sustainable level for her demanding schedule. More importantly, Catherine had discovered that her cancer journey, difficult as it had been, had given her new tools and perspectives that made her more effective in her royal role. Her authenticity, empathy, and understanding of human vulnerability had deepened, allowing her to connect with people in ways that felt more meaningful than ever before. I wouldn't wish cancer on anyone, Catherine reflected as the year drew to a close. But I also can't deny that it taught me things about strength, about what really matters, and about the power of human connection that have made me better at everything I do. The final measure of Catherine's successful return came not from media coverage or public opinion polls, but from the people she had helped during her engagements. Letters poured into Kensington Palace from patients and families who had been touched by her visits, from researchers who had been energized by her support, and from children who had been inspired by her story. One letter from a teenage cancer patient particularly moved Catherine. "Thank you for showing me that having cancer doesn't mean you can't do amazing things. Seeing you come back stronger makes me believe I can too." As Catherine prepared to enter the new year, she did so with a deeper understanding of her role, a greater appreciation for her health, and a renewed commitment to using her platform to help others. Her return to royal duties had been more than successful. It had been transformational, not just for her, but for everyone who had been touched by her journey. The princess who had disappeared into privacy a year earlier had returned as a woman whose experiences had deepened her capacity for service, strengthened her resolve to make a difference, and enhanced her ability to connect with people facing their own challenges. Her cancer journey was over, but the wisdom and strength it had given her would inform her royal service for years to come. The public had welcomed back their princess, but what they had really received was something even more valuable. A role model who had shown that it was possible to face life's greatest challenges with grace, emerge stronger from adversity, and use difficult experiences to become more effective in serving others. Catherine's return was complete, but her greatest contributions to the monarchy and to the people she served were just beginning.